Consistency means you have to do the same thing when you onboard a customer as when they're doing a transaction, right? I can't not care that someone has a human trafficking criminal record when they sign up for an account with a crypto exchange, and then suddenly I care when they're trying to transact.
Hello everyone and welcome back to DataCon Now. We're currently in Las Vegas at Money 2020 where I'm now delighted to be joined by Ari Tuchman. Ari, really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Pleasure. No, I appreciate the opportunity. It's exciting.
Ari, diving in, financial crime is more complex than ever. What's the most significant trend you're seeing and how financial institutions are leveraging technology and data to stay ahead of sophisticated threats?
I guess I would say there's kind of two different buckets, just grossly speaking, right? There's on the detection side and then there's the disposition side for financial crimes. So on the detection side, it means leveraging really cutting edge large language models for very pinpoint accuracy to discover risks and name matching. So we don't have 99.95 false positive rates on payments and wires and all that. Like, it's ridiculous how low the bar has been historically. That's on the detection side, and AI has been transformative. I mean, we're talking about factors of 1,000 to 10,000 improvement, right? Which not only helps sort of alleviate the need for thousands of investigators and body shops and outsourced, but it also means more people are signing up and getting their transactions processed and buying things, and the whole sort of financial ecosystem works better, right? When you don't have a 99.9 or greater false positive rate. So that's on the detection side, and that trend is here. I mean, we are using these automation techniques. We are taking advantage of really the accuracy and ability to scale of AI technologies today. The next side on the disposition is, okay, I flagged something, right? Maybe I even flagged it at a much better accurate rate than I have in the past. What do I do about it? Right now you're starting to wade into those agentic waters, and everybody likes to use that buzzword. Most people aren't using anything there because it's less a technology issue. It's a little more of a human risk appetite issue, right?
Interesting.
We're not quite ready to let go of the reins, even if the tech is ready, right? So on the disposition side, I think that the tech is in some sense sitting there for when the payment processors and the banks and the financial services are ready. But on the detection side, we're full throttle.
Great perspective and fantastic overview. Thank you for that, Ari. Financial institutions have invested heavily in compliance, yet threats continue to shift across payments, sanctions, and supply chains. From your perspective, Ari, what does a modern standard in financial crime detection and mitigation look like?
I would say comprehensiveness and consistency and transparency, if you allow me to have three, are probably how the standard evolves, right? Appreciate that. Let's start with transparency. Maybe that's easier. You have to have a very clear audit trail of why you're calling somebody risky or not calling somebody risky, right? Now, that doesn't mean explainability in the sense of the OCC and FinCEN regulators need to be able to reproduce your coefficients for a 10,000 dimension matrix for a contextual embedding, right? I think there were fears years ago that the super technical kind of neural net models, the regulators would have to be able to reproduce on their own. They're not asking for that now, right? That's not what explainability and transparency means. They're asking for whatever you did under the hood, fine, show me why, right? Show me the artifacts. And that has really opened up transformation because the fear of, wait a minute, how am I going to get these regulators to do the math themselves to see where this came from? That wasn't going to happen. But now that they're okay just seeing the answer key and spot checking it, I think that's really going to unleash innovation there. So that's kind of on the the transparency explainability side. Consistency means you have to do the same thing when you onboard a customer as when they're doing a transaction, right? I can't not care that someone has a human trafficking criminal record when they sign up for an account with a crypto exchange, and then suddenly I care when they're trying to transact, right? That's what gets folks into trouble, right? We all make mistakes, software makes mistakes. The inconsistencies are what gets glaring. So what that means is the standard is evolving towards anything that I think is important to do when I'm evaluating the risk of my customer. At any point in the life cycle of that customer, I have to do at every point in the life cycle of the customer. Historically, that's been really hard to do from a technology perspective, because if you think about the speed of payments, you're talking about tens of milliseconds to make a decision, right? It's very easy to do a quick lookup table, especially if you're going to get it wrong 99% of the time, to see, is this name on a sanctions list, right? So that's kind of what we've done as a community. And then when we had more time, we've done a much deeper dive. But we can do more now in tens of milliseconds than we used to be able to do. So we don't have to be limited. First of all, we're getting rid of 99% of those false positives on whether you call someone a sanctions hit. But we can go deeper. We can look for criminal records. We can look for nefarious associations. So we are entering an age where you can really have consistency across all those touch points, right? So we have explainability and transparency. We have consistency. And I would say that third pillar of the modern standard is a 360-degree view, right? And the analogy I like to use, and I know we're chatting in Vegas here, is when you're playing poker, historically, legacy technologies, financial crimes professionals have played the hand. They've looked at the transactions, right? They've looked for, what the anomalies are in those transactions. And as any poker player knows, it's not only the hand that counts, it's the guy across the table.
Right.
You got to play the guy also. And we never have as a financial crimes community. Now the technology is making that possible. And what that means is, how do you play that guy? Who are their friends? Who's their network? Who are their counterparties, right? We're always judged by the friendships we keep. We can determine those networks and those friendships in real time now. So we can get a much more holistic view, even when the transactions look fine, right? And that sort of, explainability by showing, here are the artifacts that led to my decision, consistency across every touch point of the customer life cycle, and comprehensive 360-degree view is really changing the game.
Fascinating insights. Thank you, Ari. Risk executives often worry about AI that looks powerful in a lab, but fails at enterprise scale or under regulatory scrutiny. How do you balance accuracy, explainability in scale so that institutions can both meet compliance standards and materially reduce risk?
It's a great question. And the answer is not generative AI and LLMs, right? And an easy way to see that is, one of the clients we work with, we're doing 10 million payments a day.
Wow.
It takes an LLM about 3 seconds to make that high fidelity, incredibly accurate decision, right? 3 seconds times 10 million is 30 million seconds. Wow. That's a year.
You're right.
Right? So it would take an LLM just about a year, and maybe you could make it a little faster, right? To do a day's worth of payments, right? And that's, I think, exactly what you're talking about. The wheels fall off. So, and this is kind of where the balance of large language models and small language models come in, right? When you're learning what features matter, it's good to have a really large language model. But when you run that model, you want to take the features that matter and code those very small percentage of features in a vehicle that can be super fast. And that's really how we've tried to balance, right? Leverage the large language models to learn what's important, but use a small language model when you're trying to do a runtime decision process.
So very much whatever fits the given parameters.
100%.
And Ari, in a world where threats evolve constantly and data moves at unprecedented speed, financial institutions need a real-time 360-degree view of client risks. And Snowflake is very much the unified data foundation that makes all that data intelligence accessible and actionable in a single secure platform. Ari, together, how do you envision this partnership transforming what's possible for institutions seeking to establish financial crime programs based on trust and resilience?
Look, I think you hit it on the nail, right? Nail on the head. If the data is not in an environment that's easily accessible, you're going to lose so much time in moving that data around to make decisions that everything we've been talking about is no longer possible. You also need to have the type of permissioning and audit trail and security that folks not only trust putting their transaction and sensitive enterprise data on, but also trust having databases of external data that are queried, right? Because if I'm querying news for a certain name, there's some information I'm sharing about my customer database when I'm querying that news right now. If it's all that external and internal data is seamlessly in a secure environment that could be queried efficiently, where you have permissioning, you have control, and you have speed, I mean, as an AI application company, that's our dream scenario, right? We sit on a platform such as Snowflake where the data's all there, it's reliable, it's secure, it's accessible, and there's an audit trail. That makes my job so much easier.
very much a win-win on both sides.
100%.
Ari, such a pleasure sitting down with you in Vegas. Thank you so much for
Well,
joining me.
Thank you.
And for the audience watching, I'm Ryan Green with Data Cloud Now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.